Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Are you watching me for the first time? If yet, I'm the recipe queen. I'm a Nigerian baker and I run this channel. Are you a returning subscriber? Thank you for all your views, the likes, the comments. I see you all. I appreciate you too. So in today's video, guess what we'll be doing today? I'm not baking today. I'll be treating some questions. So today is strictly question and answer segment. So before we start, I want to ask you this one favor. If you've not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. What are you still waiting for? It's free of charge. All you need to do, just tap on that subscription button and subscribe to my channel. And also don't forget to tap on that notification bell so whenever I put up new posts, you'll be notified. So sit back, relax, and make sure you enjoy this video. So the first baker's question is this: why do my cakes sink in the middle? This is a baking fault. When it comes to cakes, this is a major fault. A lot of upcoming bakers, a lot of bakers face this on daily basis. So why do their cakes sink in the middle? Why do your cakes sink in the middle? Based on experience and practically, I would say the reason for this baking fault is recipe imbalance. What is recipe imbalance? Let me give you an instance. Is a case whereby maybe there is too much baking powder in the recipe, there is too much margarine in the recipe, there is too much butter, there is too much eggs. When you have excess of some ingredients, that recipe will be imbalanced, and in return, you'll be getting this particular baking fault. You'll be experiencing it. So, for instance, those days when I started baking, I noticed this particular baking fault and I had to work on it. So how did I get rid of it? I now noticed that I wasn't really adding the particular quantity of baking powder that cake recipe needs. So when there is too much baking powder in your cake batter, then you put it inside the oven, it starts rising. And because there is so much raising agent, that's the baking powder in that cake batter, the cake rises quickly. And when it's trying to gain balance, there won't be any balance. And what next? It sinks in the middle. That is the major thing that causes this excess baking powder. And also when you're baking with double active baking powder, and when your double active baking powder is much, you experience this. And not only experiencing this, it's gonna be like your cake is boiling in the middle. You see, when you watch that cake baking in the oven, if maybe your oven has a light and you try to view what's happening inside, you see that the cake, it will be as if it's boiling in the middle. And at the end of the day, when the cake comes out, you see it will sink in the middle, and there'll be little would I say folds in the middle. So that is what excess baking powder does to your cakes. That is what using excess double acting baking powder does to your cakes. So you have to be careful when you're baking, especially when you're using your baking powder. You have to be careful to know the quantity, the exact quantity required for that cake recipe. Another factor that can cause this is opening your oven before time. When you're baking a cake, for small cakes or cupcakes, when you put them inside the oven, you're required to at least wait for 20 to 25 minutes before opening your oven to check whether the cakes are fully baked. When you're baking big cakes from, say, let's say 9 inches, size 10 cake, size 11, size 12, you have to at least wait 45 minutes before you open your oven to check. Because at times, if you open your oven before time, the air from outside gushes into the oven. There is this disagreement between both temperatures, both the one inside the oven and the one outside the oven. And before you know it, it affects your cakes, and your cakes might sink in the middle. Then there is this other factor that can cause this, especially when you're mixing your cake batter with hand mixer or wooden spoon or hand whisk. Just try and maintain one mixing direction. If you're doing the anti-clockwise style, maintain it from the beginning to the end. Then if you're doing the clockwise style, maintain it from the beginning to the end, because at times it's believe that if you do this way and do that way the same time, it might affect that cake, and when you bake the cake, there's a likely tendency that the cakes will sink in the middle. So these are some of the factors that can cause that issue. Then the next question is this: hi, the recipe queen, please, what makes my vanilla cake go bad in just 3 days after baking? I will list out the factors that can cause this. The number 1 factor, milk. Number 2 factor, heat, that's hot weather. Number 3 factor, cakes that are not fully baked. Number 4 factor is baking with bad eggs. So I'm going to treat them one by one. When it comes to the issue of milk, milk in vanilla cakes can be optional. But if you must use milk, make sure that particular vanilla cake is consumed within a day or 2 after baking. But if they must keep it, maybe your customers or your client, if the person must keep that cake, make sure the cake is either refrigerated or freezed. No need to drop it outside, no need to keep it outside, because it's not ideal. Definitely, if there is milk in that recipe, even without milk in that recipe, that cake has a very high tendency to go stale. So I normally tell my customers, please, there is milk in this recipe, please look at how you preserve it. Just refrigerate it or you freeze it, depending on how long you want it to last for you. Then if you're someone that sells commercial cakes and you want to add milk to your recipes, please add some preservatives. A lot of bakers kick against preservatives. For someone like me, professionally, I don't kick against it, because most of the things, most of the food, the canned foods we consume, we see in the market, we see in the shops, 100% of this canned foods or foods have preservatives in them. So when it comes to cake as well, it's not bad when you add your preservatives, but make sure you add the right preservative, because there are different types of preservatives. So make sure you are using the right preservative. So if you must bake with milk, make sure you preserve that cake very well. If you must bake with milk and you don't want to add preservative, please let that cake be consumed within a day or 2, or even if the cakes stay more than 2 days, it must be in the fridge, it must be in the freezer, depending on which one your customer wants to use to preserve it. And if you're not baking without milk, please also make sure you preserve that cake very well. Try as much as possible to always keep it in a cool place. But if you just drop it in a showcase or in a cupboard where there is heat, I promise you that cake will spoil. It won't stay long. So that is how heat affects your cake. Then the third factor is this: cakes that are not fully baked. A lot of people, when they bake, especially big cakes, they don't wait for it to bake well. At times, the middle has not fully baked and they will just bring it out. Baking with big pans, you must make sure your cakes bake well. But if you want to prevent this issue of your cakes not getting fully baked, please bake with shallow pans. Let's say you're baking a size 12 cake right now. Instead of putting the whole batter into one big or deep size 12 pan, why not buy or get 2 size 12 pans, or even 3. Split the cake batter so your cakes can bake faster and they will be fully baked. So when they come out, there's no issue of maybe cakes getting very soft in the middle, maybe your cakes getting soggy in the middle and all that. So all those things contribute to the shelf life of a cake. Make sure your cakes are fully baked. Then the last factor is baking with bad eggs. Please, this is one of the things that makes cakes to spoil on time. If you must bake with eggs, make sure that the eggs are fresh and not spoiled. A lot of people, you see some bakers, they bake with bad eggs. When I mean bad eggs, some of these eggs are almost spoiling. When you even break them, you can perceive the smell, as in the bad odor, is not good to bake with such eggs. And if you want to know whether your eggs are fresh, when you wash your egg, just dip it inside water or throw it inside water that is in a bowl. If it floats, that egg is not good. But if it sinks and stays down there, it is okay. So all those things, try as much as possible to avoid baking with bad eggs, because bad eggs can make your cakes spoil on time. So if you're in this category of bakers that experience this, all these factors I've listed, weigh them, check what you're not doing right, and start doing it right. Start doing them right, and you'll get the best out of it. Another baker is asking me this: why do I have wet streak at the base of my cakes? A lot of bakers experience this. What do I mean by wet streak? If you cut or slice your cake, you get to see that the base is thick and kind of wet or heavy, but the upper part is kind of fluffy, but the down part is wet or heavy or kind of dense. The reason for this is when you add so much liquid content to your cake batter, when you're adding so much eggs. Maybe, for instance, you're baking with 250 grams of flour, and on a normal day you're supposed to use maybe 3 or 4 or 5 eggs. Then you're using 10 eggs for these 250 grams of flour, and you're not doing it the separation way, maybe separating the egg yolks and egg whites, then whisking the, no, not that method. You're doing it the regular method, creaming your sugar, butter, then adding eggs. You're adding 10 eggs to 250 grams of flour. Then another thing is adding so much liquid. Some people bake with water, and at the end of the day, if your water is much, you experience that. Some people bake with milk, and if you're adding too much milk to your cake batter, at the end of the day, when that cake bakes, you notice that. And especially when you're baking with very low oven temperature, that is bound to happen. So let's watch the liquid content in our cake batter. Let's use our liquid content moderately so that we can have a perfect cake at the end of the day. So the next question is this: why do I have curdled batter? Okay, the baker is asking me why she has curdled cake batter. What do I mean by curdled batter? You see, at times when you're mixing your batter, it's as if there is separation of liquid from the fat. The reason for this is, you see some bakers at times they tend to cream the sugar and butter or sugar and margarine just for say 2 minutes, and they start adding eggs. When you do that, the creaming, as in when the sugar and margarine has, or sugar and butter has not creamed well, and by the time you start adding your eggs, there is a tendency that it's gonna separate because it has not incorporated well into the mixture. So I advise everyone, when you're trying to cream your butter and sugar, please cream very well before you start adding your eggs. And again, while you're adding your eggs, don't just pour the eggs all at a time. That is why we always advise, please, when you're adding your eggs, add gradually, add slowly, or add one at a time. Don't just pour everything into the sugar and margarine mixture or sugar and butter mixture, because if you do that, there is a tendency that that cake batter will curdle. So that is that. And again, another thing that causes curdling of your cake batter is when you're using very little flour, as in less flour, when the margarine, the butter, or the eggs are much. And for instance, you see someone, maybe the recipe calls for just 1 cup of flour, and the person uses 1 cup of flour and uses 10 eggs, uses 500 grams of butter. At the end of the day, while you're mixing that batter, you notice that it will curdle because the flour is so little. So let's try as much as possible to use appropriate ingredients, especially when it comes to the flour, the margarine, the eggs, or the flour, the butter, the eggs. Let them be moderately okay. So at the end of the day, you get very perfect cake. Another factor that causes this curdling cake batter is when you're baking with very cold eggs. Some bakers preserve or store their eggs in the fridge. Please, if you must bake with these eggs, make sure you bring them out before baking. At least let them be at room temperature before you start using them for your baking. Because if they're so cold and you use them for baking immediately, it might affect your cake batter. It might cause your cake batter to curdle. So try as much as possible to avoid some of these things so your batter will not curdle each time you're mixing. Then the next question is this. Please, the recipe queen, I'm a home baker. I need to know this. Please, what kilogram of margarine or butter should I use for 1 kg flour? Now, it depends on the recipe. But if you're doing the regular, let me use vanilla cake for instance. If you're baking the regular vanilla cake where you cream your sugar and butter, then add eggs, add flour, I would suggest if you're baking with 1 kg flour, please do not use 1 kg margarine or 1 kg butter. Try as much as possible to apply oil control, because the more the cake batter gets, or the bigger the cake, the more tendency for that cake to be dense when you bake it. So to avoid your cakes or to prevent your cakes from being dense, please apply oil control. So what I advise people to always do when you're baking with 1 kg flour, use 750 grams of margarine or butter. It will perfectly work fine for you, because at times if you use 1 kg margarine or 1 kg butter to 1 kg flour, there's a tendency that that cake will come out oily. So to prevent this, always apply oil control. So if you're doing the regular method, that's the regular vanilla cake baking method, please always reduce your margarine or butter when you're baking with 1 kg flour, especially when the flour gets to 1 kg. Try as much as possible to reduce your margarine by 250 grams. That is what I tell bakers, and it's been working for me. It's been working for lots of bakers too. A lot of people ask me this daily. A lot of people are concerned about this. The baker is asking me, please, the recipe queen, must I chill my cakes after crumb coating? Must I chill my cakes after crumb coating? I would say it depends. It depends on the type of cake decoration you're using. So right now, for me, I would say if you're making a buttercream or a whipped cream frosted cake, there is no harm in chilling your cakes after crumb coating. But if it's a fondant cake, please, is a no-no. Please do not chill your crumb coated cakes if you're trying to cover those cakes with fondant, because at the end of the day, it might affect the fondant. The fondant might start sweating. It might make your work to just be untidy. Your designs might run, or the colors might spoil everything. So please, please do not chill your crumb coated cakes if it's going to be a fondant cake decoration. But if it's going to be a buttercream frosted cake or whipped cream, you can chill. If it's going to be a buttercream frosted cake, please don't chill for long. Just put it in your chiller or your freezer or your fridge. Don't chill more than 30 minutes or at most 1 hour. But if it's gonna be a whipped cream cake, you're good to go. You can chill even overnight, no problem. Because when it comes to whipped creams love your cakes when they are when they're even blocked. No problem with that. So please, if it's fondant, do not chill your crumb coated cakes. If it's buttercream, don't chill for a long time. If it's whipped cream, you can chill for as in a long time, no problem. So you must not chill your crumb coated cakes, if depending, especially if it's fondant cake decoration, do not chill. And let me tell you this, the reason why most bakers try to chill is optional, it's not compulsory. The reason why most bakers try to chill their crumb coated cake is so that the crumbs, they will lock it in, so that when they are frosting, especially with buttercream, the crumbs will not spoil their work, the crumbs will not give them issue. So that is the reason why most bakers chill their crumb coated cakes. It's not as if it's a must. A lot of people can still frost their cake even without crumb coating. They just do it directly and it works for them. So, but if you're trying to avoid crumbs, if you're an upcoming baker that cannot work directly on cakes, please try and chill your crumb coated cake when it comes to buttercream frosting or whipped cream frosting. Today I'm going to take the last question. The baker is asking me, please, what is the work of nutmeg in a cake? Is it compulsory for fruit cakes? To start with, nutmeg is a spice, and I will rate it as one of my dry flavors. When it comes to fruit cakes, I can't bake my fruit cakes without nutmeg. It's not as if it's compulsory for general baking. That is a thing of choice. But for me, I love using nutmeg to bake my fruit cake because it gives it this distinct taste. It's a very sweet flavor when it comes to fruit cakes. It gives it that unique taste. So for me, nutmeg, I would say for me, nutmeg is compulsory for my fruit cakes. I cannot bake without nutmeg when it comes to my fruit cakes. Every baker must have it handy, especially when it comes to fruit cake. Just add a little. You can grate the seed nutmeg. You can put the powdered nutmeg. So you're good to get any one you have. Fine, use it. For me, nutmeg is a very good spice. So if you have some questions to ask as a baker and you don't know how to go about that, I'm here for you. Ask your questions in the comment section. I'll see them all and I will treat them as time goes on. And you can send a private message to my email, my Instagram DM, my Facebook inbox. Try as much as possible to reach me. I will answer your questions, and from time to time I'll be treating questions on this channel so other bakers can listen to this question as well and learn from my answers. So I'll call it a day till some other time. Bye and stay blessed. And please, if you've not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. So see ya. I'll see you in my next video.